Hi, everybody. This is Vivek Iyani here. Thank you so much for being patiently waiting for us. We had some technical issues at the start, but we are good to go today. So, today we are going to be talking about a very interesting topic about mistakes that people tend to make in their first 15 years, their best 15 years of their career. And to talk about this topic, we have someone who's a veteran who's been through this pathway. He has accumulated a lot of experiences. He is a mentor to many young people as well, and he's going to be sharing a lot about this topic today. So what we are going to do is we are going to have him share with us his insights on what are those mistakes that we should not make ourselves. So please put your hands together to help me invite Victor Lim.
Hi,
Hi, Victor.
Vivek. Hi.
Hi, thank you for joining us again, once again. And before we start, maybe do a quick introduction to everyone else so that they know who you are and what you do.
Okay, I'm a next gen mentor. I mentor a lot of people. Some are undergrads, very, very young people, some not so young, older people. A lot of career coaching. I mean, financial services, business. Yeah, so
Okay.
I enjoy the coaching of these young people. And as I do all this coaching, I come to a realization that really many may be wasting their best first 15 years of their life when they start working.
Mm. It's very interesting to hear that because 15 years is not a short amount of time. It's actually a long period. It's in fact more than a decade, right? So
Mm.
maybe can you share with us what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've noticed the youths making in their first 15 years of their career?
I think it's quite common that safety, everybody want to be safe,
Mm.
so we want to like play safe. So the venturing thing, this venturing spirit, I think that maybe it's lacking. Everybody wants assurance. I hear a lot of people say, I just want a stable job,
Mm.
which is what everybody is, wants to have. But in today's world, you look at it, really, sorry, is there such a thing as stability in your career, in your job, right? I think things have changed a lot in the last maybe 20 years, 30 years. Yeah, so we come to a different place now. So the traditional mindset, I think, has to change, but maybe many young people today are still having a very traditional mindset.
Mm. Mm. So the 20s are actually the best times to be taking a lot of risk, right? Because that's the
Mm,
time where you don't have a lot of dependence on you. You are
mm,
pretty free, right? You don't have so many overheads. So actually, this is the time to really explore what you really want to do. And I remember even Gary Vaynerchuk, one of the biggest social media experts, also tell the young people explore and do different things, find out what you really want to do, and take risk because this is the best time for you to take risk. So that is one key thing. They are still very traditional in terms of thinking. They don't really know whether they should try something new. They're very scared about what other people may think. What do you think is the reason why do they make these kind of mistakes?
I think there's a lot of fear of the unknown, and that fear sometimes is unfounded because there is a lack of understanding, of their very own ability.
Mm,
Sometimes there's
mm,
this doubt about themselves, and also a lack of understanding of what the world out there, or all the possibilities out there. Maybe they fail to understand, right? And then they hear from their friends. Whatever their friends say is like gospel truth. And if their friends are like not successful and just like everybody else, then it's a very a norm thing, right? So
mm,
everybody takes this so-called normal road. You end up very normal, like just like average.
mm,
If you study the statistics, you realize that 15 years is where people peak in their careers, averagely speaking, and the decline will start at around 40 years old, plus or minus. In some cases, maybe in the late 30s, people already pick, it's hard to
Mm.
advance. In the words of a friend of mine who is a CEO of a listed company, he said engineers, he work with a lot of engineers. Engineers have a 15-year lifespan. All
Oh,
right.
okay.
They will grow. They will grow. All right. By the time they hit 15 years, they start to become a liability to the company.
Mm.
They become
Mm.
expensive. And when they bid for projects, when you have a lot of expensive engineers, figure out a way, right? Otherwise, you can't fight your costing and everything. So really, it's about cost to the company.
Mm.
So people need to understand that that is the reality. That's the truth. There is a period. There's a lifespan, and people
Yeah.
need to be really aware of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's like saying that after 15 years, the curve, instead of going upwards, it will start to go horizontally, right? I mean, so your maybe even downwards as well. If your demand is not as high as it used to be, then that is one thing that I think will happen. Now, for people who are aware of this, they are good. But what do we do to help people who don't know, who are they don't even think 15 years ahead, they think maybe 1 week ahead, maybe 1 day ahead. We are very instant gratification kind of a generation. So how can we educate them to think long term, think 15 years ahead instead of just a few days ahead?
One of the things they can do is to talk to people who have already peaked in their careers. You talk to a 40-something-year-old, and you realize
Mm,
that they really get the truth from them. What is the working world like? What kind of progress have you made? What kind of future do you see? And you really get the truth of the matter. So people need to be able to see the future, so to speak, in the
mm,
next 10, 15 years, what you are capable of doing. And people need to see what is happening in the world out there, what kind of opportunities are there, right?
mm,
I was speaking to a 40-something-year-old person who wants to make a career switch. He can do his job, but there's not enough opportunities, or he feel that he can do much better. uh, Things are not exactly going so great. You have to do all the various problems, and obviously he sees that now is the time where uh, he becomes very volatile.
mm,
So you want to look for opportunity on one hand, but on the other hand, now you reach a point where you have a lot of liabilities, you have a lot of bills to pay, right? You got kids who are still young, a lot of things that are there, and that's where they dare not take the risk. And of course,
mm,
it would be risky lah, in such a situation. The older you are, the more risky it becomes,
mm.
where
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
literally like trapped. And well, we see a lot of companies sometimes just replacing people. It's a common,
Mm,
right?
mm.
So if you can't build something in 15 years, then you realize by the time you reach there, you realize that I didn't build anything, and I have wasted my best years. And that
Yeah.
is sometimes, to me, as I talk to these people who reach there already, it's painful.
Mm,
I'm
mm.
motivated to help people understand this.
Yeah. Yeah. So we know that logic is not enough, right? Because sometimes when we tell young people this is how it may happen, logic still doesn't really make them. So sharing real stories of people who have peaked, people who are struggling, people who have reached that point is so important for them to realize that that could also be one of us. That could be you, right? You could also be in that same. You could be making the same mistake that someone who was 15 years ahead of you is currently facing the consequence of. I think that's important for the young people to understand. So if you guys here, if you're tuning in with us, please share in the chat, right? Have you experienced going through a peak in your career where you felt that you are not really growing anymore, you feel like you are more of a liability as opposed to an asset, right? So please do share in the chat. I'd like to hear your thoughts, your comments over what do you think about this topic. Is it good to be more risk taking or risk adverse, especially in your first 15 years? So maybe until before you hit 40, right? Is it good to be risk averse, or should you be taking more risk? Please share in the chat. I'd love to hear your comments, right? What is your risk appetite like, especially when it comes to your career? And, Victor, as we are talking about this topic, right, I'm thinking, right, if people are halfway there, that means they've not hit the 15-year mark, right? What can they then do? Maybe they are in their late 20s. What can they then do to make sure that they change pathway and recover from some of these mistakes?
Well, there is hope for these people. That's the good news, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in your 20s, maybe you're 5 years into it, maybe you're even halfway into it. I would say that there is hope. Yeah, and it's to recognize that I need to be a sort of visionary.
Mm,
Anybody should be, because if you want to be successful in life, in your career, you sort of have some kind of vision. Yeah, and the
mm,
thing is to be able to understand yourself really, really deeply. Yeah, and finding somebody to talk to, talking to experienced people, talking to a career coach, all these
mm.
would be great help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Talking about self-awareness, right? I know that a lot of people have dreams, they have goals, they have desires, but the thing is they have all these fears that hold them back from taking action, from taking the risk, from believing in themselves and believing that you can make it to the other side, right? It feels like a very hard journey for a lot of people to take. So, is there any way for them to, really increase self-awareness of their strengths, of their capabilities, of what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be going into? Is there any way to find out?
Oh, definitely. We have been coaching a lot of young people, older people, and they all have realized that after they've gone through a coaching session, they realize that wow, this is something, it's so informative for me. I hear from them that I really learn a lot. I thought I know myself, right? But they didn't know quite as well, because all these things has been done for so many years, over the years, and there's a lot of material on it, and a lot of people benefited. First of all, to be aware. Example, this morning I was just talking to somebody who just graduated, started a job, in one of the big social media platforms. And I realized that this person has to speak to the person. The person is a very technical person,
Mm,
very head-centered.
mm, mm, mm,
And these guys are like really good in this kind of work, but they don't
mm.
like to deal with people. It's
Yeah,
not their thing,
yeah.
right? So this guy, after 2 months, may realize that there are certain parts of the job that I like, but certain part I don't like. I just don't like to deal with people. But sometimes you have no choice, right? Yeah, because you have to deal with people, and the ability to deal with people is really something really, I think, is a great strength that anybody who has would have, right? Because in this world, there, as long as you want to do well, you got to deal with people, right? Unless you are like such a genius, like for example, Steve Wozniak, Apple's founding partner with Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs is the person who understands engineering, but he's a businessman.
Mm,
This guy, Steve Wozniak, is an engineer. All I want to do is build a computer. I don't
yeah,
want to do business. I just want to
yeah.
build, I'm happy sitting down in front of the computer and building this stuff. Right. So there are people like that who don't care about a lot of things. This thing makes them happy. Right. But I think that there are people who are capable. That's why I say many of them may be wasting their best years because they didn't realize what they're capable of doing. And this is
Mm,
where coaching comes in. That they should talk to a career coach,
mm,
and they have a much deeper understanding of themselves, what they are really capable of doing, what they should not be really doing. For example, I got one guy who is a very well-rounded individual. He has so many traits that I would call healthy,
mm,
and he has very few unhealthy traits. Very young person, but very well developed. Right. So as I speak with him, there are one of the things that I realized that he don't do so well is that he is not a person that can produce or like or good at doing something like building a structure. organizing a system. So what does he need to do? He's a leader. So I told him, you got to find somebody who can do this for you.
Leverage. Yeah.
What way to do it? You don't have to do it yourself, because why do it yourself when you're not good at it, right? And or
Exactly.
possibly even you spend a lot of time, you will not produce the same thing or as good as somebody who may be strong at this area. So the whole idea as a leader, for this guy as a leader, is to be able to identify what you're really good at and what you don't like or you're not good. Get someone who's good. And that's what Steve Jobs does, right? He identified who are the best people, the marketing people, the engineer, like Jonathan Ives. These
Mm,
guys are
mm,
like great designers, But after Steve Jobs left, because the guy every day quarrel with the other director. And but when Steve Jobs was around, Steve was able to contain these two guys.
mm, mm,
No quarrel. But
mm.
after Steve passed on, big problems. So there are different people that are really sort of like have the right makeup. I think everybody needs to understand your makeup. And there are
Yeah.
areas that I would call unhealthy, can be developed. But if you are not aware that you have this unhealthy trait, which is which may be hindering you from progressing in your career, even hindering you in your relationships with people. All right, and
Mm,
relationships is something that's important even in the workplace. You just need to have that kind of skill and the art of dealing with people. So you need to fine tune and develop that. So when you do this kind of profiling, you will understand yourself and be aware. Oh, these are the areas that I need to develop. These are the areas that is really hindering me and causing me a lot of maybe pain, right? And it's just bringing me down, right? So
mm, mm.
awareness that you talk about is something that I think everybody need to be fully aware of
Yeah.
themselves.
Absolutely. And once they are aware, I think they can also be aware of what's their risk profile, risk appetite, and what are the things that they can actually go into, because their strengths lie in these kind of areas. So it actually opens up a lot of options for them, a lot of opportunities for them. So in today's world, it's not just about having one career. You can have multiple side hustles as well. So it actually helps the individual, I believe, to understand what are the other areas that they can contribute and add value, and also at the same time earn some money. So I think that is definitely one of those. Another question, right, is how can our audience, right, especially those who are in their first 15 years in their career, how can they make the most out of their career? How can they plan everything in such a way before they enter the workforce? Is there anything that they can specifically do to be ahead of the rat race?
Sure, they will be ahead, and they will be a great thing to do is to there are three things they need to understand. The first thing they need to understand is to understand themselves deeply. What I'm
Mm,
capable of doing, what I potentially can do, what are some of the things that I really shouldn't be, spending too much time, or what are the areas I need to fine tune and develop myself, what changes I need to make, right? So it's to understand yourself deeply. The second thing to understand is to understand the world out there. What's happening out there? What's going to look like in the next few years, in the next 10 years? What do I want to do, right? Understand the opportunities. I think
mm,
that a lot of people do not quite understand the opportunities out there,
mm, mm,
right? So they should talk to people who have been successful,
mm.
right, and understand the business world. I think that would really be very, very helpful. And the third thing they need to understand is to understand what is risk, what
Mm,
is career risk. Do I understand it? Yeah. And what is it really? What risk am I, really taking on? Very often, people, because they do not understand risk, they stay far, far away. So they become what we call risk averse. And we all
yeah.
know that people who are successful took a lot of risks, and that's where all the entrepreneurs are really, successful because they took risks. In some cases, a lot of cases, they know what they're taking, calculated risk, and there are certain ways to manage risk, like investments. For example,
Mm,
investment is like having a long-term horizon. I'm going to ride all the waves. I'm going to just stay there when all this noise happen. Nothing to worry about. I stay cool. I
yeah.
stay there and then wait for the market to come back. You will rebound, right? So that's an example of understanding risk and know how to manage it. In the same
Mm,
way, when we look at careers, when young people look at careers, they should understand what risk am I taking.
mm,
Is it so risky? Is it going to be like so difficult that actually I cannot do it?
mm.
So when they fail to understand this risk, then they cannot go forward, right? So sometimes they need to know what risk I can take, what risk I should not take. Yeah, if they ask
Calculated risk.
to
Yeah.
become an accountant, that's the risk I cannot take. I cannot do the job. Right, engineer, wow, this complex, all these algorithms and all this very very technical stuff. I won't go there because that's risky for me to go. I will not do well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the thing go back to this: understand yourself, understand the world, and understand what is risk and what risk I can take as a young person.
Wow. Very wise words about risk, about understanding yourself and understanding the world. A lot of people are very focused on the next milestone. So if they are in their final year, they're thinking about creating their CV, getting internships, and graduating and getting their first job. Very focused on the next milestone. But what we are talking about here is not focused just on your next milestone, but focus on what is the milestone you want to be achieving 15 years from now, right? What do you really want to be doing at 15 years? That is a little bit more like of a bigger dream, something that will keep you excited and engaged throughout the way, and at the same time without losing any kind of market value, without becoming a liability. So we are talking about what are the mistakes that a lot of young people tend to typically make in their first 15 years, their best 15 years of their career. And we were just having this conversation. So Victor, for those newcomers, right, who are going to graduate, what's your advice for them?
My advice to them really would be, like I said, I've been saying it so often, that really understand yourself. Go through a session of coaching.
Mm,
Yeah, and I think that the career coaching session would be helpful for anybody wanting to start out, right? When you can understand these few things that I mentioned, then you take a step and look at what you can accomplish. It's a long-term thing, but we want to look at what I want to do in the next 2 years. Right? What risk I
absolutely.
can take, and I think that definitely young people can handle a lot of risk when they're young. When you
Yes.
grow older, you're so scared, you dare not take any risk, and it's gone. And time is the most precious commodity. That's why I'm so excited to want to help young people understand that this is very precious because when it's gone. And your
Mm,
best years. So people don't think about the next 15 years. They only think about now.
yeah.
But that's not how people succeed. Successful people do not think only now. They really think ahead.
Mm,
They understand a lot of things.
yeah.
And they have
So
the
it's about
ability to take
Correct.
risks.
So it's about being a visionary. It's about thinking far ahead, right? So for those of you who are interested, to learn more about yourself, learn more about the opportunities that are there for you, right? What you can do is you can scan this QR code, right, and you will get to have a career coaching session, with Victor, right, and with the mentors that we have. So please do scan the QR code, and you also get to win some exciting prizes. Victor, would you like to share a little bit about what's in store for those people who actually, scan the QR code and sign up?
When they sign up, they will get a report, all right, which will determine all the scores, right? Which means you need to know what is your personality type. There are 9, and then you have one major, one secondary. We call it a wing, the secondary kind of a personality. And that would have a lot of scores there. The scores would tell us what scores you really do, which part you do really well. You score very high, and what does it mean?
Mm,
For example, you score very high on 6. What does it mean? It means that you are hardworking, responsible, dependable, structured, systematic, organized individual that can put a lot of things in place. A classic engineer.
mm,
Then you look at, he also score a lot of negative, high negatives. Then this person would be a person, much as he has all these strengths, he also possesses all the weakness, all
mm,
the unhealthy traits. It could be there's too much doubt, there's too much worry. Right? When you are too doubtful, you are too worried, you end up a lack of confidence that you dare not take the step forward, and you always be slow in making decisions, And sometimes in life, you just need to have the ability to make decisions, which successful people are able to do, right?
Yeah,
But when you
absolutely.
want to like do everything to be safe, it's not going to work because in this world, there's no such thing as playing it safe. So they need to understand, oh, this is what is holding me back. That's
Mm,
why they have a lack of confidence. So all these things will help people understand. When you do this profile, you understand where are your really healthy traits and what are your unhealthy traits. And it's going to affect a lot in their life. So spending maybe 40 minutes would help you a lot in understanding yourself, and your journey going forward will be so much better because you have this awareness about yourself. I talked to
absolutely.
these young people this morning, young person, he said he got a girlfriend. I said, wow, okay, okay, I think I want to do it. Yeah. So I think scan the QR code, do the test, answer the questions. It's 180. We sponsor that. And then we look at the profile. You want to have a coaching session. I think the coaching session will be really, really useful for people even before they start working to know
Mm.
yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Victor, for sharing your wisdom, sharing your insights about this big mistake that a lot of people make in their first best 15 years of their career life. So for those of you, you've already heard Victor, but I'll just say it one more time, right? Scan the QR code, fill in the form, and you get a free personality profiling coaching session, right? Typically you only get the automated report, but to get a skilled practitioner who knows how the profiling tool works and can explain all the doubts you have, that's something that is adding even more value to you as an individual who wants to learn more about yourself. Knowing your strengths, knowing your capabilities, knowing your weaknesses will actually help you to navigate your first 15 years of your career life even better. So I highly encourage you to scan the QR code and take action right away. Thank you for all of you who have joined us today, and I hope you've gotten some really good wisdom from this conversation, this dialogue that we've had about the mistakes that people make. So now, with that, I'll see you guys in next week's episode, on episode number 6. Till then, take care, stay safe, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye bye.